Have you ever felt that something strange is happening in your home? Imagine being in your house, the place that should provide you with security and peace, and suddenly a chill runs down your spine for no apparent reason. The lights flicker without explanation, unsettling echoes slip through the hallways, and there are corners you simply prefer to avoid. If you have ever experienced something like this, you are not alone. Today, we will delve into this mystery through the eyes of a man who understood spiritual battles like few others, Padre Pio. Many know of his life of devotion, his miracles, and his holiness, but few are aware that he also faced intense combats against the forces of evil. These were not metaphors or mere internal struggles, but real demonic attacks that left him bruised, plunged him into nights of torment, and made him feel the dark presence of malevolent entities in his own room. It was through these experiences that he acquired profound knowledge of how evil can infiltrate our lives and our homes. Today, we will reveal the 7 signs that, according to Padre Pio, may indicate a demonic presence in your home. This knowledge is powerful, and for that reason, I invite you to write in the comments, "I believe in the protection of Padre Pio." This small act of faith may be the first step in strengthening the spiritual barrier of your home. Get ready, because what you are about to discover will not only help you recognize these signs, but will also give you the strength to face them, just as Padre Pio did. And at the end, we will share with you a special prayer of deliverance, the very same one he used in his spiritual battles. Do not turn away, because every minute counts when it comes to protecting your home and your loved ones from the forces of evil. With Padre Pio's guidance, we will embark on this journey of discovery and spiritual protection together. Let's begin. Before delving into the signs that Padre Pio taught us to recognize, it is essential to understand who this extraordinary man was and why his teachings on spiritual battles remain so valuable. Francesco Forgione, known as Padre Pio, was born in 1887 in a small town in Italy. From a very young age, he showed a special connection with the divine. At the age of 5, he already had visions of Jesus and the Virgin Mary. But with these gifts also came trials, and from an early age, he began to experience the dark side of the spiritual world. In 1910, he was ordained a priest and took the name Pio in honor of St. Pius V. However, his life took a definitive turn in 1918 when, while praying before a crucifix, he received the stigmata, the same wounds of Christ on his hands, feet, and side. These open and bleeding wounds remained with him for 50 years until the day of his death. But the stigmata were not the only trial he faced. Throughout his life, he endured intense spiritual attacks. Entire nights, he was tormented by demons that beat him, insulted him, and tried to confuse him. Demons never rest, Padre Pio warned. They are always trying to turn us away from God. Despite these attacks, or perhaps because of them, he developed a deep understanding of how these forces operate and how they can manifest not only in the spiritual realm, but also in our physical world, especially in our homes. For him, the devil was like a rabid dog on a chain. If you kept your distance, it could not harm you, but if you got too close, it would catch you. This wisdom, acquired through years of spiritual combat, is what makes his teachings on the signs of demonic presence so valuable. He did not speak from theory, but from lived experience. Padre Pio was also known for his extraordinary gift of reading souls. Many people testified that even before they confessed their sins or anxieties, he already knew what they were going through. His intuition and connection with the divine allowed him to discern when someone was under demonic influence. Padre Pio not only understood the manifestations of evil, but also developed effective methods to help people free themselves from them. It is important to understand that his warnings about demonic activity were not meant to instill fear, but to empower the faithful with the knowledge and spiritual tools necessary to protect themselves and live with strengthened faith. Through decades of intense spiritual experiences, Padre Pio identified certain signs that may indicate the presence of malevolent forces in a home. He did not share them to frighten, but to make people aware and protected. "Do not be afraid of the malice of the devil," he used to say. "Follow in the footsteps of Jesus, and with him in your heart, you will have nothing to fear." To accompany you on this journey of faith, we have prepared a special resource, our ebook, The Spiritual Secrets of St. Padre Pio. This book contains powerful prayers, reflections based on his teachings, and practical advice to strengthen your spirituality. You can find the link to obtain it in the first pinned comment. Now that we understand who Padre Pio was and why his teachings on this subject are so essential, we are ready to delve into the 7 signs that may indicate a demonic presence in the home. What you are about to learn could change the way you perceive and protect your most sacred space. The first sign that Padre Pio warned about was unexplained disturbances within the home. These are not everyday incidents, but phenomena that defy logic and create an unsettling feeling that something is not right. Imagine resting in your living room after a long day, and suddenly a loud noise from the kitchen shatters the silence. Upon investigating, you find that all the drawers are open, even though you are completely alone at home. Or perhaps you wake up in the middle of the night with a strong sensation that someone is watching you. But when you turn on the light, there is no one there. These are examples of the phenomena Padre Pio described as signs of demonic activity. He himself experienced similar occurrences on numerous occasions. Once, while praying in his cell, a deafening crash made him think that the entire monastery was collapsing. But when he went out to inspect, everything was perfectly in order. Over time, he understood that these were attempts by the devil to interrupt his prayer and weaken his faith. According to his teachings, these disturbances can manifest in various ways: objects moving on their own or falling without an apparent reason, doors and windows opening or closing inexplicably, lights turning on or off by themselves, unexplained noises like footsteps or knocks in empty rooms, and sudden temperature changes in certain areas of the house. He also observed that these phenomena intensified at specific times of the day, especially around 3 in the morning, an hour he called the hour of darkness, when the forces of evil attempt to mock the Holy Trinity. One of the cases Padre Pio often mentioned was that of a woman who came to him in desperation because crucifixes were falling off the walls in her house without any apparent cause, and the lights flickered incessantly at night. With his gift of reading souls, Padre Pio was able to see that there were objects in her home that had been acquired through occult practices by the previous owners. Without knowing it, the woman was living among objects that served as gateways for demonic activity. The solution, according to Padre Pio, was simple yet powerful. Eliminate any item that could have a connection to evil and strengthen the home's spiritual protection. If we ever experience this type of disturbance in our home, Padre Pio left us several key recommendations for protection. Keeping sacred objects inside the house, such as crucifixes, St. Benedict medals, and images of the Virgin Mary, can serve as a powerful defense against evil influences. Using holy water regularly, sprinkling it in every room, especially in the corners and entrances, is another highly effective practice. Constant prayer, particularly the recitation of the Rosary, was considered by him as the most powerful weapon against evil, recommending that it be done daily to strengthen spiritual protection. Additionally, making the sign of the cross whenever something strange is perceived is a gesture that, according to his teachings, holds great power against dark forces. Finally, invoking the protection of St. Michael the Archangel, to whom Padre Pio had a special devotion, is a proven method to keep malevolent presences away. He advised praying the prayer to St. Michael the Archangel frequently as a spiritual barrier against any attempt by the enemy to infiltrate our home. Padre Pio warned about the importance of keeping our home free of objects that may have connections to occult or negative practices. Although we may not always know the history of the objects we possess, if any of them generate discomfort or an unsettling feeling, it is best to get rid of them. Additionally, he recommended asking a priest to bless the house, as he firmly believed in the power of priestly blessings to purify and protect the home from any malignant influence. Despite the signs of spiritual disturbances, Padre Pio reminded us that we should not be afraid. Pray, have faith, and do not worry, he used to say. Experiencing these phenomena does not mean that we are abandoned or that evil is stronger. On the contrary, it is an opportunity to strengthen our faith and our connection with God. The enemy's goal in manifesting these disturbances is to create fear and confusion, but if we recognize them and act with faith, we can turn them into opportunities to deepen our spiritual life. Another sign that Padre Pio identified as a possible demonic presence in a home is a heavy atmosphere and a sense of oppression. Unlike physical disturbances, this is a more subtle sign but equally important to recognize. Imagine coming home after a normal day and suddenly feeling as if an invisible and suffocating blanket has fallen over your shoulders. The air seems denser, almost difficult to breathe. You may experience pressure in your chest or a knot in your stomach without any apparent reason. According to Padre Pio, this kind of atmosphere is no coincidence. He himself lived through this sensation in many of his spiritual battles, describing how, on some occasions, his cell became oppressive and stifling, as if a malevolent presence were trying to crush his spirit. It is as if the very air were charged with evil, he would say. This atmosphere can manifest in various ways. A constant sensation of being watched, difficulty breathing, unexplained pressure in the chest, or a feeling of sadness and despair without any apparent cause. Padre Pio warned that these symptoms should not be ignored, as they could be signs of a negative presence trying to weaken the faith and inner peace of those who live in the space. The devil, he affirmed, seeks to make us feel alone, overwhelmed and hopeless. But we must always remember that God is stronger than any darkness. One story he often told was of a man who came to him in despair. His home, once a place of peace and joy, had become a place where no one wanted to be. Upon entering the house, everyone felt exhausted and irritable for no apparent reason. Padre Pio, with his gift of discernment, was able to perceive that a negative influence was affecting that space, creating an oppressive atmosphere. In such cases, Padre Pio left clear recommendations on what to do to restore peace in the home. Praying Psalm 91 daily was for him one of the most powerful forms of protection. In his experience, this biblical passage had a special impact on dispelling malevolent influences. Lighting blessed candles was also a recommended practice, as he believed that the light of a consecrated candle could dissipate spiritual darkness. Additionally, he advised the use of blessed incense, as he believed its aroma purified the environment and created a space conducive to prayer. Padre Pio also emphasized the importance of physical order within the home. He said that material disorder could attract spiritual disorder, so maintaining a clean and organized environment fosters harmony and drives away negative energies. He encouraged filling the home with music and prayers, suggesting singing hymns or playing sacred music to elevate the spiritual vibration of the space. Fasting was another tool he recommended, as he was convinced that it strengthened the spirit and weakened malevolent influences. Finally, he urged people to constantly invoke God's presence, suggesting small prayers throughout the day to invite divine light into every corner of the house. Despite how distressing experiencing an oppressive atmosphere can be, Padre Pio reminded us that where there is darkness, it is most necessary to bring light. Do not run from the battle, face it, he would say. His fundamental teaching was that the enemy's goal with this heavy atmosphere is to make us feel discouraged and separated from God. However, if we recognize this sign and act with faith, we can transform our home into a true sanctuary of peace and love. To him, the best way to combat this dense energy was by filling the home with joy and gratitude. Joy, he assured, is a force that evil cannot resist. Padre Pio taught that joy is the fruit of faith, and where there is true faith, darkness cannot last. He reminded us that one of the most painful signs of a possible demonic presence in the home is the frequent emergence of conflicts without apparent reason. Imagine that your home, once a refuge of peace and love, suddenly turns into a scene of constant arguments, recurring misunderstandings, and irritability without any cause. For Padre Pio, these situations could go beyond mere stress or communication problems. They could be signs of a malignant influence. The enemy, he would say, loves to destroy harmony in homes because the family is one of the strongest pillars of faith and therefore a frequent target of the forces of evil. Throughout his life, Padre Pio witnessed how families that once lived in unity and harmony began to fall apart for no apparent reason, becoming trapped in patterns of constant conflict. The signs of this malignant influence could manifest in different ways. Arguments that escalated rapidly without a clear cause, frequent misunderstandings among family members, feelings of anger or resentment that seemed to arise out of nowhere, a lack of patience and tolerance, and even a great difficulty in forgiving even the smallest offenses. One of the cases he often recounted was that of a couple who, after years of happiness, began to argue constantly until they reached the brink of divorce. Unable to understand what had changed, they sought his advice. With his gift of discernment, Padre Pio perceived that a negative influence was working to sow discord in their relationship, weakening their bond and distancing them from God. To face these conflicts and restore peace in the home, Padre Pio left clear recommendations. He firmly believed in the power of family prayer, assuring that when a family prays together, their bond is strengthened and negative influences lose their power. He also insisted on the importance of forgiveness, calling it the most powerful weapon against hatred and division. He recommended regularly blessing the home with holy water, especially before sleeping, to purify the atmosphere and protect it from any spiritual disturbance. Having a small altar dedicated to prayer could serve as an anchor of peace during times of conflict, reminding everyone that God is present in the home. Additionally, he advised practicing patience and understanding, as he believed patience is a virtue that weakens the enemy. He also warned about the destructive power of hurtful words, assuring that negative language can be an open door for the influence of evil. For this reason, he insisted that we must be careful with what we say in moments of tension. Finally, he had a deep devotion to the Holy Family and recommended invoking the protection of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph as a model of family harmony. Padre Pio always reminded us that these conflicts, however painful they may be, should not be a cause for despair. Where there is a greater attack, he said, it is because the enemy sees great potential for good. He encouraged us not to give up in the fight for peace in our homes, because the enemy's purpose in causing these conflicts is to separate us from our loved ones and from God. However, if we recognize them and act with love and faith, we can strengthen our family bonds even more. In his teachings, the best defense against these attacks was unconditional love. Love, he said, is the most powerful force in the universe. Where there is true love, evil cannot thrive. He also emphasized the importance of humility in times of conflict. Sometimes, he warned, Pride prevents us from seeing how we are contributing to the problem. Humility opens our eyes and our hearts. Another sign that Padre Pio identified as a possible demonic presence in the home was disturbances in sleep. This phenomenon could be particularly unsettling as it affected the rest and mental peace of those who experienced it. Imagine going to bed expecting a restful sleep, but instead, you find yourself facing a night of vivid nightmares, inexplicable insomnia, or the persistent feeling of a threatening presence in your room. For Padre Pio, these events were not mere coincidences, but signs of an ongoing spiritual battle. Padre Pio warned that these sleep disturbances could be more than just simple nighttime disorders. In many cases, he assured, they were signs of a negative spiritual influence. The enemy, he said, frequently attacks during the night when we are most vulnerable. He himself suffered these nocturnal attacks throughout his life, waking up with bruises and scratches that he could not explain. These disturbances could manifest in various ways, such as recurring and vivid nightmares, persistent insomnia without any apparent medical cause, a sensation of pressure in the chest, or difficulty breathing while sleeping, the perception of a threatening presence in the room, or sudden awakenings throughout the night, especially around 3 in the morning, a time he referred to as the hour of darkness. One of the cases Padre Pio often recounted was that of a woman who came to him in desperation after months of being unable to sleep well. Each night she would wake up terrified, feeling as if someone was watching her. With his gift of discernment, Padre Pio perceived that a malevolent entity was tormenting her at night, seeking to weaken her. To combat these disturbances, he recommended a series of spiritual practices. He advised praying before bed, recommending the rosary or at least a Hail Mary as protection against evil influences. He also suggested keeping a crucifix in the bedroom, convinced of its power to repel darkness. Using holy water to sprinkle the bed and the surrounding area before sleeping was another key recommendation. Additionally, he encouraged invoking the protection of the guardian angel, as he had a strong devotion to these divine messengers and believed in their ability to safeguard souls during the night. Another practice he recommended was keeping sacred objects near the bed, such as a St. Benedict medal or an image of the Virgin Mary, as he believed these symbols of faith provided great spiritual protection. He also warned about the importance of avoiding disturbing content before bed, as certain books, movies, or programs could open doors to negative influences. If someone woke up frightened in the middle of the night, Padre Pio suggested praying immediately, especially the prayer to St. Michael the Archangel to drive away any malevolent presence. However, he always reminded people that these disturbances, although frightening, should not be a cause for despair. Fear, he would say, is the enemy's favorite tool. But remember, my children, that God is stronger than any darkness. His fundamental teaching was that the enemy's purpose in disrupting sleep was to weaken the person both physically and spiritually. However, by recognizing these signs and acting with faith, it is possible to turn nights into moments of deep peace and communion with God. For Padre Pio, sleep was a sacred gift, a time of rest granted by God. He believed that during sleep, souls could be closer to the Creator, which explained why the enemy sought to disturb it. Another sign Padre Pio identified as a possible demonic presence in the home was unexplained health problems. This type of manifestation could be particularly unsettling, as it directly affected the physical well-being of those experiencing it. Imagine suddenly suffering from pain, discomfort, or illness without a clear medical explanation. You visit multiple doctors, undergo tests and examinations, yet nothing concrete explains what you feel, and still, the ailment persists. According to Padre Pio, in some cases, these afflictions could have a spiritual origin. The body and the soul are deeply connected, he affirmed. Sometimes, a spiritual attack manifests through physical suffering. Throughout his life, Padre Pio experienced numerous health problems, some of which he attributed to his spiritual battles. Among the symptoms that could have a spiritual origin, he mentioned chronic pain that appeared and disappeared without apparent reason, extreme fatigue that did not improve with rest, recurrent illnesses that did not respond to conventional treatments, physical symptoms that changed suddenly or seemed to move throughout the body, and sudden allergies or sensitivities without an identifiable cause. One of the cases he remembered was that of a man who came to him with intense chest pain. Doctors found no abnormalities in his health, but the pain was so severe that he could barely work. With his gift of discernment, Padre Pio perceived that a negative spiritual influence was causing this suffering. To address such health issues, his recommendations were clear. First and foremost, he insisted on not neglecting medical attention. He always advised consulting healthcare professionals to rule out any physical illness before considering a spiritual cause. However, he also emphasized the importance of prayer as a powerful means of healing, assuring that faith could strengthen both the body and the soul. Padre Pio taught that strengthening the spirit was essential to confronting unexplained health problems. For this reason, he recommended regularly receiving the sacraments, especially confession and communion, as he firmly believed that these strengthened both the body and soul. He also suggested using sacramentals, such as blessed oil and sacred medals, as a means of protection and grace. He considered fasting a powerful spiritual tool, capable of purifying the soul and aiding in physical healing. Additionally, he advised seeking the intercession of the healing saints, particularly Saint Raphael the Archangel, whose celestial mission is to bring healing. But above all, he insisted on the importance of maintaining a positive attitude. Joy, he said, is a powerful balm for both the body and the soul. He reminded us that these health issues, however perplexing, should not be a cause for despair. The illness of the body, he affirmed, can be an opportunity for the growth of the soul. For him, the enemy used these ailments to weaken people both physically and spiritually. But if they were recognized and met with faith, suffering could be transformed into a source of spiritual strength. He taught that pain, when offered to God, became a powerful prayer. Do not ask to be freed from your suffering, he would say. Ask for the strength to endure it with love. He also spoke of patience in these moments of trial, assuring that healing sometimes came instantly, but more often it was a gradual process. Trust in God's timing, he advised with serenity. Another sign that Padre Pio identified as a possible demonic presence in the home was spiritual oppression and discouragement in faith. This sign, though subtle, could be one of the most dangerous because it directly attacked a person's relationship with God. Imagine suddenly feeling blocked when trying to pray. The words that once flowed easily now seem trapped in your throat. You might feel a heaviness when thinking about attending Mass, or the spiritual practices that once brought you joy now seem empty and meaningless. For Padre Pio, these feelings of spiritual disconnection were not mere doubts or fleeting distractions. They could be direct attacks from the enemy. The devil, he warned, knows that prayer is our most powerful weapon, so he tries with all his might to keep us away from it. He himself experienced periods of spiritual dryness and oppression, moments when he felt as if his prayers were not reaching anywhere. This sense of emptiness could manifest in different ways. Difficulty concentrating during prayer, a feeling of boredom or dissatisfaction when participating in religious activities, persistent doubts about faith, the desire to abandon spiritual practices that were once meaningful, or the sense that God is distant and not listening. One of the cases he often recounted was that of a young priest who came to him in the midst of a crisis. This man, who had once been fervent in his vocation, suddenly felt that every prayer was a struggle. It seemed as if God had abandoned him. With his gift of discernment, Padre Pio perceived that this priest was under severe spiritual attack. To combat this oppression, Padre Pio gave very clear recommendations. The first was to persevere in prayer, even when one feels nothing. Prayer, he explained, is like the oxygen of the soul. Do not stop breathing just because you cannot feel it. He also advised reading the Bible daily, as he believed that God's word had the power to dispel spiritual darkness. He insisted on the importance of frequently receiving the sacraments, especially confession and the Eucharist, which he considered inexhaustible sources of spiritual strength. He emphasized the need to seek support from the faith community, assuring that no one should battle spiritual crises alone. Additionally, he recommended practicing gratitude, as he believed that thankfulness opened the heart to God's grace and helped restore one's connection with Him. For moments of intense spiritual battle, he suggested praying the prayer to St. Michael the Archangel, one of the most powerful prayers against the forces of evil. But above all, he taught the importance of maintaining hope. Remember, he would say, that after the darkest night, the sun always rises. These periods of spiritual oppression, no matter how difficult, did not mean that God had abandoned anyone. On the contrary, they were often moments of profound purification and spiritual growth, opportunities to strengthen faith and deepen one's trust in divine providence. Padre Pio taught that moments of spiritual dryness did not signify God's abandonment, but were trials sent to strengthen faith. At times, he explained, God allows these difficulties so that we may learn to trust Him more deeply. Understanding this is essential, as the enemy's goal with spiritual oppression is to separate us from God. However, if we recognize these signs and persevere, we can emerge from the trial with a faith stronger than ever. One of the clearest signs of a malevolent influence in the home is an aversion to sacred objects. Imagine that suddenly someone in your household begins to experience an inexplicable discomfort upon seeing a crucifix. Perhaps religious images that once adorned the walls now provoke unease, or holy water, which was once used with reverence, suddenly triggers a reaction of rejection. Padre Pio warned that these reactions could be evident signs of a negative presence. The devil, he said, cannot bear the presence of the sacred. He flees from it as darkness flees from the light. Throughout his life, he witnessed numerous cases where individuals under demonic influence reacted violently to blessed objects. This aversion could manifest in various ways: unexplained discomfort around crucifixes or religious images, a sudden desire to remove sacred symbols from the home, physical reactions such as nausea or headaches upon touching blessed objects, rejection of participating in blessings or using holy water, and even irritability or aggression when near sacramentals. One of the most striking stories Padre Pio told was of a woman in distress because her husband, once a devout man, suddenly could not even tolerate the sight of a Bible in their home. He would become furious at any mention of God or the church. With his gift of discernment, Padre Pio perceived that this man was under strong demonic influence. To confront this phenomenon, Padre Pio left several fundamental recommendations. He advised never to remove sacred objects from the home, even if they cause discomfort, as they serve as valuable protection. He also insisted on the importance of regularly blessing the house, recommending that a priest be asked to perform a blessing if such aversion was noticed. He considered the frequent use of holy water an effective way to purify both spaces and individuals, and he encouraged praying the rosary as a family, viewing it as a powerful weapon against evil. He suggested placing sacred images in prominent locations, affirming that the presence of Jesus, Mary, and the saints spiritually strengthened the home. Additionally, he taught specific prayers for deliverance to combat demonic influence, and if the aversion to the sacred was severe, he advised seeking the help of a priest experienced in spiritual liberation. Padre Pio always reminded us that this aversion to the sacred, though alarming, should not be a cause for panic. Remember, he would say, that where evil tries to enter, it is because there is something valuable to protect. It is crucial to understand that the enemy's purpose with these manifestations is to distance us from sources of grace and protection. However, if we recognize this sign and act with faith and determination, not only can we resist the attack, but we can also strengthen our devotion and the holiness of our home. With this seventh sign, we conclude the exploration of the warnings Padre Pio taught us to recognize. Before closing this journey of learning, let us review the signs and share a powerful prayer for the protection of the home. This knowledge not only helps us identify and confront negative forces, but can also be the key to maintaining our home as a true sanctuary of peace and love. Dear soul who has made it this far, if these teachings of Padre Pio have touched your heart, I invite you to leave a comment as a sign of gratitude so that more families may receive these valuable revelations. And if you wish to continue receiving messages of protection and wisdom, join this faith community. Together, we can create a space where peace and harmony become a reality in every home. Before concluding, I want to share with you a powerful prayer that Padre Pio recommended for the protection of the home. I invite you to pray it with me. Lord Jesus Christ, we ask you to bless our home. May your sacred presence fill every corner, every room, and every heart in this house. May your light dispel all darkness. May your love conquer all hatred, and may your peace calm all distress. Virgin Mary, Mother of God and our Mother, intercede for us and cover this home with your mantle so that it may be a refuge of love and holiness. Amen. Virgin Mary, our Mother, extend your protective mantle over this family and intercede for us before your Son Jesus. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. Padre Pio, faithful friend of God, pray for us, so that your example of faith and your intercession may strengthen us in our daily walk. May our home be a refuge of love, a sanctuary of peace, a place where God is honored and adored. Amen. Remember, dear brothers and sisters, that this prayer is not a magical formula, but a sincere expression of our faith and trust in God. Padre Pio taught us that prayer, when it comes from the heart and is accompanied by a life of true faith, is our best protection against any adversity. If you have identified any of these signs in your home, do not despair. As Padre Pio said, pray, hope, and do not worry. Seek the guidance of a priest, strengthen your prayer life, and remember that God is more powerful than any evil we may face. Before closing, I want to invite you to share this message with those who may need it. Perhaps you know someone who is experiencing difficulties in their home, and these words of hope and guidance could be the light they need. Sharing this knowledge can be an act of love, helping someone find the peace and protection they seek. And if this message has resonated in your heart, I invite you to leave a thank you in the comments. Your gratitude not only encourages us to continue spreading these teachings, but it may also inspire others to listen and benefit from this message of faith. May God bless you, may the Virgin Mary protect you, and may Padre Pio intercede for you and your families. And never forget his words. Pray, have faith, and do not worry. Worry is useless. God is merciful and will hear your prayer. Until next time, and may the peace of Christ reign in your homes.